Hi, I'm Joyce Woodworth. Welcome to the Spirit of the Heartland. Today we're in Wabasha, Minnesota at the brand new National Eagle Center, and I've been observing through this telescope two eagles that are actually sitting right over there on that tree. I can see them really close up with this wonderful telescope. There's great exhibits inside, wonderful things happening here at the National Eagle Center. We're going to go in today and find out what it's all about. The National Eagle Center is nestled in the heartland of America in one of the oldest established cities on the shores of the Mississippi River in Wabasha, Minnesota. The building in all ways is a tribute to our national bird, the American bald eagle. The bald eagle became our national emblem in 1782 by the Second Continental Congress. In America, it is the living symbol of the USA's freedom, spirit, and pursuit of excellence. For the very same reasons, it is also the symbol used by Native Americans and the American veterans. In the early 1700s, the population of eagles in North America was estimated at 500,000. But the growth of the human population as America became more developed dropped that number down to fewer than 1,000 by the early 1960s. The human use of pesticides on crops, for instance, contaminated waterways and food sources for the eagle. The use of DDT caused thinning of the eagle's eggshells, which often broke during incubation, thus thinning the eagle population and leading this majestic bird to extinction. In 1973, the eagle became protected under the Endangered Species Act. The use of DDT became outlawed, and the American eagle soared once again to the present population of over 20,000 birds in the lower 48 states and over 35,000 birds in the state of Alaska. The American eagle was taken off the endangered species list on June 28, 2007. It is still protected. However, this is a powerful sign that the symbol of our nation is strong and thriving once again. Well, I'm standing in the rotunda here at the Eagle Center, and this is Mary Beth Garrigan, who's the program director here. Hi, Mary Beth.
Hi, Joyce. How you doing?
I'm doing great. This building is absolutely fantastic. Tell me about the background of this building and also of the center itself.
Well, the National Eagle Center has a very grassroots beginning. In fact, Mary Rivers, who was a local citizen here, really started organizing eagle watchers in the community as the eagles came back in the mid-'80s, late 80s. The eagles started coming back into this area. When they started making their comeback, this area here became a favorite area for eagles to fish in the wintertime. On the Upper Mississippi National Wildlife Refuge, where Wabasha is the northern gateway to that refuge that goes 260 miles downriver.
The strong currents at the confluence of the Chippewa and Mississippi rivers allows a 3-mile expanse of river to remain ice-free most winters. This section of open water runs directly by the National Eagle Center. The open water, abundant fish, and woodland areas attracts thousands of eagles, most of which are migrating south. However, about 150 do remain in this area year-long. 24 which have paired up for life, mating in January or February, and generally producing 2 new ones each year and using the same nest year after year.
It really actually started with a grant that came from the federal government as seed money to start to raise money to help to establish this center in 2000. And most of the money was raised through a capital campaign conducted by capital campaign chairs, Jerry Arns and Don Jacoby. They've done a fantastic job.
But let's talk about the building itself. It's incredible. How about the design and what goes on in the building?
Well, one of the first things we really wanted to establish is how important the connection of the environment is to the survival of the bald eagle. And that, of course, really defines the refuge, the Upper Mississippi National Wildlife Refuge. So one of the first things you see in this building is this tremendous wall of viewing area that is devoted to the refuge itself. And in the wintertime, that makes for fabulous eagle viewing in temperature controlled, so if you're not tolerant of the weather, you can come inside and watch eagles hunting and fishing during the coldest parts of the year. After you see eagles out across the refuge flying and making a living in the wild, you can meet an eagle, we call it the nose to beak experience, where you can get close up and actually meet an eagle.
Well, Bucky, tell me about your eagles here.
Okay, well, we have 3 eagles that are residential eagles here at the National Eagle Center, Columbia, Angel, and Harriet. All 3 have been injured and they're non-releasable back into the wild, and we have them here by permission of permit through the United States Fish and Wildlife Service.
And which one is this?
This is Columbia.
Hi, Columbia. Tell me about Columbia.
Well, Columbia was injured in a hip struck by a vehicle and injured her wing, so she's unable to fly and non-releasable back into the wild. She's about 6 years old, and you can tell a little bit of her age by the coloration of her, the baldness of her head. She's not completely bald yet, not completely white, and that's an indication of her age as well.
How do you ever get her up on your arm like that? Did you have to work with her? Tell me how you train her.
Sure. Well, there is extensive training going on, and it's done through a combination of just repetitive training with them, as well as a lot of food, the use of food for behavioral management. Consistency in that, and the handlers having a routine that we go through, the way we tie them, the way we approach them, the way we ask them to step up onto our arm. Columbia is the youngest of the 3, and is actually sometimes the feistiest of the 3 to work with and to handle. For that reason, she's my preferred eagle to work with. I like for the people to be able to see them in as some of the personality that they would possess out in the wild. I mean, these are wild animals that are now captive here and used as educational eagles. So I like for the public to be able to see some of those behaviors as well.
What kind of other things do your eagles do?
Well, they travel. They're ambassadors. So part of their role is to educate the people not only about just eagles, but also about the environment here on the Mississippi Flyway here, the migratory pathway. So they travel. They do cultural programs, be that American Indian.
Wow, you did that well.
Well, she does most of the work. I just hold my arm up. So.
Settle down now.
Yeah. So they travel. They're Eagle ambassadors. They move. They go to Veterans Affairs, to American Indian programming, public schools, youth organizations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. There's even been some. Harriet was even in a wedding. So the Eagles do quite a bit. They go out and promote awareness and education about bald eagles and the environment, and hopefully reestablish a link to the environment and to our national symbol.
And you obviously have a joy in working with them, don't you?
Yeah, it's not every day that you get to be this close to an eagle. And definitely on a personal level, my own American Indian heritage has some links to being with eagles, and from a historical perspective, what the eagle means to this country. So it's really an honor. I mean, to get to do something like this and to get to work with eagles and to establish a relationship with a wild animal, it's a pretty unique opportunity. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Bucky, for sharing all your stories with us.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thanks.
Eagles have vision up to 4 times that of humans. In fact, one eye can focus close up while the other watches for predators or food sources far away. They fly out of the nest at 12 weeks when they have become full grown, and they can live up to 40 years of age. They are one of the largest birds in North America. However, their bones are hollow, making them quite light for their size.
Yeah, sometimes they look a lot heavier than they really are. Some people think they weigh as much as 50, but they're surprised to pick it up. They're heavy, but they're not as heavy as they thought. Now we have 2 different types here. This is what a Midwestern eagle female size would be, and then now behind us here is what an Alaskan bald eagle female might typically weigh, a little heavier. So it kind of gives you a perspective. And then of course you can pick up something familiar as a house cat back here to kind of give you, to compare what a house cat would be to a bald eagle with the feathers and the density of the bones. And that's what we talk about here in mammals versus birds. So you get some of those lessons in using the eagles as a biology demonstration of why birds are much less weighted than mammals. So some of these are are fun little lessons that we have as part of the interactive exhibits here.
We're at the Talons of Power exhibit here, and what you do is you squeeze this to see how many pounds per square inch and how much power you have in your hand. And here we go. Let's see how much I have. Oh, wow. 20 it looks like. Doesn't look like I'm very strong, but now let's press the button here and see what the pounds per square inch for the eagle is, and see who's stronger, the eagle or me. Okay, well, the eagle won.
So we have a small prey animal up in our rafters, and you looking through this eagle's eye have to try to find it. And when you look inside, you'll just see how close that becomes, how an eagle might see it in the wild. So if you look in and you look up in there, you'll see a little critter running across the rafters up there. Go ahead. The second floor is really dedicated to the eagle and the cultural aspects, as it is as a symbol for our nation, as it is a symbol for Native American communities and veterans. So, and there's several galleries that are sort of rotating exhibits. There's a lot of changing things that are happening up here. So, like in the Rotunda, there's exhibits about, there's historical flag exhibit that's going on up here. And these are all flags that are over 100 years old, and they represent the various stages in American history. It really is important because the eagle means so many things to different people, especially in the veteran community. In fact, many people don't realize that our eagles are actually dedicated to veterans. We have a lot of volunteers that are themselves veterans that take the eagles to veterans honoring ceremonies, to the VA hospital. I mean, it's an amazing story in itself to watch these eagles and how what it means to veterans. And that, in fact, some of our exhibits that will be featured here in the future will have to do with testimonials, people's testimonials of why eagles are important to them. This is sort of a circle that looks down into the first floor gallery again, and you can actually see an overview of the entire river valley here, where the eagles might travel along the migration route, some of the valleys that are important for eagle roosting. And it also gives people a sense of place. And as you look up into the sky, there is, the beautiful sky above, and then you can actually see we had a flock of 80 pelicans that flew and were soaring in a circle right over the rotunda here. And you can see these birds moving right over the building. So it's really a continuum of the kind of a three-dimensional scape that the bird is a part of. The eagle, this is the eagle's realm. Above everything. So
it's a great spot. I feel just really incredible. I feel like an eagle standing here. We've got the sky above me, the river below me. Yeah, it's beautiful. And here is our Mississippi Flyway here.
Yeah, the Upper Mississippi National Wildlife Refuge, of course, will be featuring as a part of the grand opening because, of course, this is why the eagles are here. I mean, if we didn't have our National Wildlife Refuge system, we would not have seen the recovery of the eagle as dramatic as it has occurred. And so this is really the reason why the eagles come here.
The Mississippi River Valley is an important flyway for eagles and other migratory birds. Protected by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Association, it provides a highway between their summer breeding grounds and their winter habitat. The pelicans, for instance, continue on to a warmer climate after they stop in the refuge areas that lie in the backwaters of the river near every little town along the Mississippi, eating their fill of fish along the way. The eagle, too, migrates from the north to a warmer climate. However, many of them choose to end their migration near the open water that runs past Wabasha, Minnesota. The National Eagle Center provides a gathering spot for people to observe and learn about this treasured bird. On the last weekend of September 2007, the grand opening of the center was held. The rainy weekend did not hold back those who recognized the importance of the eagle and the Eagle Center.
When I was a young man, I could work through wind and rain. I never thought to worry, had no reason to complain. I thought that I was standing on a rock so firm and strong, but it was easy then to see just what was right and what was wrong. But now
We come here today to honor these flags. So today I have my orders as well, is to honor this Eagle staff, those that fight, those that take a stand, earn these feathers for doing their job, just as those over in Iraq, all those that stand up for their people. They have earned these feathers. So we too always would like to do a flag song. This is called a flag song for these feathers. We stand under these feathers, that we will stand our post, we will stand our guard. Hechituelo.
The Dakota Native Americans shared several of their traditions during the grand opening. Another that featured the feathers was the Eagle Dance, presented by Brian Akipa and Danny Seaboy, who narrated and beat the drum.
That's the warrior's look that you see that he has on, we call it the porcupine hair. When you wear a porcupine headdress on your head, you are a warrior. You are a protector, just like the porcupine has those quills. So this is why we are here, is to show you the spirit of the eagle, the spirit of the Dakota, the spirit of this porcupine, all these things that are connected.
But I want to thank each and every person who did, in fact, work on, contribute to, or visit. It's an element of Wabasha. It's another reason to continue the quality of life that we have here. And I'm going to steal something from Don Jacoby, who's worked on this, because it's probably the thing that struck me the most about this. He said, I was working on this and I was getting money for the building. And he got a tear in his eye. And he said, I figured it out. It's not about the building. It's when you take Harriet and you go to Indianapolis and you visit veterans who have been injured. And the Eagle, Harriet is there and Mary Beth is with them, and you go by the veteran. And the veteran gets a tear in his eye or wants to hold the Eagle. And you see a breath of smile that hasn't been there for a long time. That's what the National Eagle Center is about. It's about the belief of a sacred bird that plays so integral a part in a culture of our nation. That's what the Eagle Center is about. It's about an eagle soaring high that represents our country. That's what the National Eagle Center is about.
I am the manager of the Upper Mississippi River National Wildlife and Fish Refuge. The refuge covers 240,000 acres. It starts just upriver where the Chippewa River comes into the Mississippi and runs for 261 miles down to near Rock Island, Illinois. It is perhaps the most important fish and wildlife corridor and an important corridor for people in the upper Midwest and perhaps the nation. The upper Mississippi River itself has 165 active bald eagle nests. Just 35 years ago, we only had one active eagle nest on the whole refuge. Last spring, during a spring count, we counted 2,700 bald eagles on the river on one day. A wonderful accomplishment and a testimonial to what endangered species conservation, clean water laws, habitat protection, and public awareness and support can accomplish. And most important, healthy eagle populations tell us that our world is also healthier for all of us, for our children, and for the generations to come.
The eagle is about honoring. And at this time, I would like to take a moment to introduce to you Harriet the bald eagle. She is our veteran eagle. Her ID band, that when she was found injured, we turned in the information and found that she was actually hatched in Wisconsin in 1981, and she was a female breeding eagle in the wild for 18 years. And it makes sense now why she had an arthritic condition when she was found, with a trauma that more than likely came from an automobile when she was scavenging for food. She probably was hurting and couldn't fly as well after 18 years. And when her injury was deemed non-fixable, she was non-rehabable, she could not go back to the wild, she came to the National Eagle Center. She was our first bird. She's a survivor. Primarily, she's known as our veteran bird. She has many fans at VA hospitals where she has visited recovering military personnel in polytrauma, amputee wards, through our Education and Outstretched Wings program. This was written on May 2nd, 2007, and it says, "To whom it may concern, I am writing this in regards to the effect of this program that volunteer Bob and his wife Liz from the National Eagle Center had when they brought Harriet the Eagle to the Minneapolis, Minnesota VA Medical Center for the veterans. My name is Cindy Parsons, and my son is wounded OIF warrior, injured on September 30th, 2006 in Iraq. He is a bilateral above-the-knee amputee and sustained a traumatic brain injury. My son and I arrived in Minnesota on January 9th, 2007 for his traumatic brain injury rehab. We met Bob and Liz with Harriet the first week we arrived to the VA. My son was having some difficulties with the transfer from Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and he suffers from PTSD, along with the other injuries that causes a lot of difficulty with the changes in his environment. Words are not enough to explain the way my son Shane bonded with Harriet. It gave him a chance to focus on something other than his direct injury. It also told me that when he looked into her eyes, she felt what he felt. They began a bond of understanding, courage, and hope. Despite the pain, suffering, and self-image, life goes on, and it proves that animals too provide an example of strength, bravery, and rehabilitation. It teaches the wounded warriors that strength endures with courage. We both cannot stress how this program plays an important part of a veteran's recovery, in many ways in all of us. The eagle represents courage, bravery, and strength. Why shouldn't it continue even if it's wounded? I think the reason we're so successful in having so many volunteers to this project is that people have a certain amount of pride, because this is about them as an American and about their national bird, the bald eagle. You know, the bald eagle belongs to all Americans, and it's such a great comeback story and a success story. And things, I guess, for children too, it's a lesson of how we can turn things around, take a negative and can turn it into a positive. And so it has ramifications for multiple generations and beyond. So we're very proud, and so are the volunteers that helped us with this project. And so we want to share this with the world.
Nowhere in the United States is public awareness of the plight of the American eagle more evident than at the National Eagle Center. This majestic bird is the symbol of strength for our nation, for the Native American population, and for the United States veteran. It deserves the support generated by the center, and by strict enforcement of protective laws, preservation of their habitat, and support for environmental conservation programs, we can assure a healthy and secure future for the United States' majestic and symbolic national bird. This has been Joyce Woodworth. Thank you for joining me today. Please join me again next week. Till then, enjoy the spirit of the Heartland.